The doc is back in, which means another edition of the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show is on the air on YouTube and also on all of the Virginia Union social media platforms. I'm Sean Robertson. Great to be back with you this week, talking Virginia Union football with the head coach, Dr. Alvin Parker, recapping their big win, their only home game in the first 6 games this year. A little bit of a revenge game against Johnson C. Smith. I know you don't like to talk about revenge, but I got the sense there was a little bit of revenge after what happened last year.
I think it just made us aware of the type of ball club we had to be in that game, more than anything, because we knew we were facing a not just a good ball club, but a great ball club. So those guys are always prepared, and you could tell that by the way they've been playing this season. So we had to make sure, that we were extra prepared. So, the guys played well. After about an hour and a half delay, we was able to kind of get it in. I just was hoping that it wasn't going to be like the Hurricane game 2 years ago.
I was going to say.
So, when that rain kind of passed and that sun came out, I was like, we're going to get to play some dry football today. So I was happy that we got to do that.
When you're in that delay with the guys, and from what I was told, because I got there a little bit late, I got there right at the start of the delay. You guys didn't get a chance to warm up until after the delay ended. So what are you saying to the guys in the locker room to kind of get them maybe refocused, get them loose before you actually got on the field and warmed up?
That was a lot about, I guess, what we've been talking about like the last, couple previous weeks in terms of the team being player-led. A lot of the directives was coming from the locker room and inside the locker room. So, we just told those guys to stay ready. We stretched a couple times, moved around a couple times, and in that miss, I had a couple conversations with Coach Flowers just so we can kind of be on the same page in terms of start times and warm-up times and things like that, and we kind of got the final go ahead. We went right in our normal pregame routine, so like that, I guess that got the guys ready,
Right.
But I thought those guys was focused, and the rain didn't necessarily fret anything because, we had 2 soaking wet practices last week that, we had to get it in, so, and I'm talking about consistent rain in both of those practices,
right.
With the weather like what it was in Richmond last week. So, when they kind of seen it kind of coming down, they like, yeah, we've been in this a couple times this week already. So I think that kind of, formulated them into something that was good.
Yeah, some fireworks to start the game. You got the opening kickoff. Tart, it appeared looked like he was going to score on a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. They said he stepped out, so it was only 61 yards. You get down to inside the red zone, decide to go for it on 4th down, 4th and a yard, and get stopped on 4th down. Walk us through that process about going forward and what maybe Johnson C. Smith did to stop you on 4th down.
Well, they're a great defense, first of all, but I think, again, you had to rely on what you felt like you were doing good. So, I put it in those guys' hands. And we could have did a few things better on that drive as a whole, not just that 4th down play, but, I just wanted to show that I had confidence in those guys, and I think it kind of helped us throughout the rest of the game. Even though we didn't get that 4th down, it showed those guys the level of confidence that we had in them, from an offensive staff standpoint. And, later on in the game, they made some other big plays.
Yep.
So that was kind of key into what we were trying to do, just make sure we kind of came in and established some things. And going for it on that 4th down, was part of our plan.
And one of the rare mistakes that the Panthers had in that contest, they rushed for 200 yards against, at that time, the number 1 rush defense in the CIAA. Curtis Allen, a 3rd straight 100-yard performance, rushed for 108 yards, was named the Willard Bailey Offensive Player of the Game, had 4 touchdowns, has 8 now in his first 3 games. What's been working with Curtis to start the season?
Well, if you've seen Curtis the past 3 years.
Yeah, and before that at Prince George.
It was a little more the same. He's always been a special back. He's been a special back his entire time here. I think, he started out, as a freshman at number 25.
Yep.
And next year with the number 9. And this year, begged me to go into 0.
Why did he want to go to 0?
I have no idea. But he begged for it. I think he felt like, he wanted to kind of just rebrand himself and kind of, show something different. And obviously his work, in terms of that, just being a leader out in the front, that's the thing we're getting from him this year. So, we like it.
Yeah, he leads the CIAA not only in touchdowns, but rushing yards at 460. Only in 3 games he's done that, and he's the only rusher in the conference that is averaging over 100 yards a game. He's averaging 153 plus this season. And your defense, we've talked a lot about the defense this year. JCSU was coming in one of the top teams in the CIAA in total offense. You get 4 sacks, you force some turnovers, you hold them to, I think, just under 100 yards rushing in the game. Pretty good performance by the defense against JCSU Saturday.
2 good defenses.
Yeah.
I think our defense and their defense, are highly ranked in a lot of categories in the
Yeah.
NCAA, CIAA. So to kind of come and to play like our defense played, I was extremely impressed with the way those guys played in the second half. Of course, getting to the quarterback and forcing some turnovers throughout the game and doing some things that were pretty good. I think them guys took a personal challenge, the week. They felt like they didn't play well when we went down to Florida. So to take a personal challenge during the week and come back and play the way that they did, I was extremely impressed. It was hats off to Coach Pointer and that defensive staff and all those players over there for kind of making that effort to make sure that they were able to put together a game like that.
I was going to say, did they take more ownership and, as you said, police themselves in that situation? Did Pointer really have to say a whole lot in the week leading up to the game against JCSU?
Wasn't a whole lot said. I think, when you have a team like we have, it's easy for those guys to be coached, and they kind of see a lot of those things on their own. So, Coach Pointer's no nonsense most of the time, and those guys know that, but we have a great defensive staff with, Coach Pointer, Coach Rogers, Coach Brown, Coach Jones, Coach Gould. Those guys, just got together and, put something together that was pretty daggone special, and it was good, and like I say, fun to watch. 4
different players got a sack. Christian Aiken, big performance for him. 8 tackles, 2 for a loss. Also had a sack and a half in the win. And holding JCSU to only 4 of 12 on third down conversions. That's kind of one of those stats that go under the radar. But getting them off the field on third down, I know was big for you guys.
Man, shoot, that's one of the most important stats to me. I think, extending drives, or stopping people. That's something that's extremely important in this game. And there's some things that, some other things that are pretty key when you look at, the stats and things like that can tell you a story. But turnovers, third downs, and those type of things are something that's, extremely valuable when you're trying to make sure, you can move your team in either direction.
Another stat, red zone conversions. Panthers were a perfect 4 for 4 in red zone conversions because Curtis Allen had 4 touchdowns in the win against JCSU. That game, we probably mentioned it last week, that did not count as a conference game. Conference week starts this week for Virginia Union. We'll talk more about that in our final segment as they begin a 3-game road trip in North Carolina starting Saturday against Sharp. But coming up next, we got some very special guests. Part of the show for Virginia Union is always the band. We had the cheerleader coach a couple weeks ago, but we're going to talk about the band and have the band director and some special guests joining us on the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show right after this.
The styles you want, the brands you love, with the service you deserve. Better Menswear. From formal to casual wear, we carry quality men's clothing at sensible prices, where fashion and service meet affordability. That is Better Menswear.
Welcome back to the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show. Coach will join us in our final segment to preview their conference opener this weekend against Shaw University down in Durham. But as we mentioned before the end of the first segment, the football game is just a part of the show that you get to see at Hovey Field. Another part of it you get to see basically every halftime, and that's the band performing at midfield for Virginia Union. And joining us now are 3 members of the band. We have the band director of VUU, Dr. Edward Howard. We also have 2 members of the band. We have junior Keziah James. She is a drum major for Virginia Union. Also Nyla Palmer. She is the band freshman class president and also the one that helps us out on the show each and every week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you all for the invitation.
Thank you for having us here.
We're going to start with Coach first, give y'all a time to, settle in a little bit.
Okay.
Coach, how long have you been the VUU band director, and what made you decide to be a part of Virginia Union and the band?
I've been here maybe 14 months, and, it's had its ups and downs, but for the most part, it's been fair. We took over the band during a transition period, and even though it was rather testing, we're starting to see the fruits of our perseverance now. Great support from Coach Parker. The irony, his name comes up, and the president, and the campus community. So we're just pushing forward. And what made me take on this project is I've been a bandsman for a long time. Also, I come from a family of a lot of professional athletes, and
Okay.
coaches, and so on and so forth. Band was always my backup plan, and ended up becoming my primary. Had some things occur when I was younger, my first year of college, that prevented me from continuing on with football. So ended up falling back, not really saying, falling back is a terrible term, but I ended up leaning
safety
towards
net?
band. Yeah. I always, I'm from New Orleans, so, the culture of music is a big part of our heritage. And almost everybody in New Orleans know how to play a little something, either that or sing. So 22 years later, here we are.
Okay. All right. What instrument do you play the best?
My primary instrument is going to be tuba and euphonium or baritone, but typically most brass instruments I'm very fluent in.
Okay. Because we spoke before we came on. You mentioned you are a drum major here at Virginia
sir.
Union. What made you decide to join the band and also become a drum major?
What made me decide to join the band is I love the band, I love the music, and I see how hard they work, and I want to be a part of a hardworking team because I'm a hardworking person, and I believe in growth. That's why I decided to try out for a drum major, because if I'm excelling at something, I want room for improvement, and my hard work really paid off in becoming a part of the first female squad.
Look at that. Congratulations on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Nala joining the band as a freshman and becoming the band freshman class president. Walk us through that. How, what made you decide to come to Union and then join the band and then ultimately becoming the freshman class president?
So what made me decide to come to Union was I had a spring break my senior year in high school. And, I had heard about them because they came down to Atlanta. I was like,
Okay.
This small band sounds really good. Like, who are they? So I decided to take a trip up there, and I had a campus tour, and that's when I met Professor Howard, and he showed great hospitality to me and my mom. I met the band. I ended up meeting Keziah. Actually, everybody just felt,
really?
yeah. Everybody just felt so welcoming. And coming from Atlanta, which is 8 hours away, my biggest thing was coming somewhere where I can still feel like I'm at home. So they definitely showed me that. And as a freshman, being in band, like I said, it has its ups and downs, just adjustment in general with college. But I've met a great friend group. I have a great, community. Everything's been really good. I've definitely been enjoying myself here. And with being a freshman class president, it's definitely a lot of responsibility, as a freshman, to have your directors put that type of trust on you. But I think it really shows me dedication, hard work, keeping myself accountable, as well as keeping the others around me accountable.
Now, when the audience and the fans get a chance to watch you guys at halftime, and that's the final piece of what you guys do each and every week, how difficult or how challenging are the practices leading up to that performance at halftime?
You asking me, Leah?
They're very repetitive.
Everybody.
They're very repetitive, and we don't have time to mess up. Like, we don't have room to mess up, because if we mess up, they're going to record us and people are going to post about it. Like, we are a good, hardworking band. Like, no.
Yeah.
That's why mistakes like that don't happen, because we work hard.
We definitely stress the importance of practicing how you perform. So when we get to the performance, it comes natural. So we really focus on details.
Coach?
Yeah, well, that sounds cute. I like to say, to be as open and transparent as possible. It's nerve-wracking because I have to know what the crowd wants to see before they see it.
Okay.
I have to know what they want to hear before they hear it, and how they want to hear it, even the sequence. So it's a lot of, you got to give a big shout out to Virginia Union University because of the facilities, and Coach Parker for sharing the field with us, because I get a chance to stand up there in the stadium and look at just the blank field, and I'm kind of like a visionary.
I was going to say, it's almost like a blank canvas. You're like a
Yeah.
painter, and you're looking at the field as your canvas.
That's exactly how it happens. So that's one of the most important parts of my creation process. Sometimes I sit out there by myself and try to, actually hear the band playing, because I listen to them so much that, it's not easy to, use my imagination. And if my imagination doesn't move me, it never makes it to them.
Well, ladies and gents, we appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us. The next time you hear them will be homecoming, right? At Hovey Stadium. Yeah. So I know you're going to have a great list of songs.
I can assure you that this will be one of the greatest homecoming shows you've ever witnessed in the history of the school.
So y'all going to have to live up to that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Right. Well, you can't wait for that. That's going to be October 18th, homecoming at Hovey Field. Thank you so much for joining us, and continued success this year. We got one more segment to come. We're going to have Coach Parker joining us once again as we preview the conference opener in Durham against Shaw University. That's next on the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show.
Football is more than a game. It's a legacy built by trailblazers who paved the way for the next generation. I remember the doubters, but I refuse to let anyone define my limits. To the game changers who came before us and to the ones who are yet to step into the field, keep pushing boundaries, keep breaking records, and keep leaving your mark.
All right, back for our final segment on the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show. Big thanks to Dr. Howard along with Keziah and Nyla joining us. Nyla is in the back. She's continuing the production for our show tonight. Again, you will hear them at homecoming October 18th. That'll be Virginia Union's next home game because this weekend starts a 3-game road trip through North Carolina to open up conference play. It begins in Durham against Shaw University. New head coach Lamar Manigo, who you know very well, former OC down at Virginia State, played in the conference at Bowie, so he is very familiar with the CIAA surroundings, and they're coming off their first win of the season, knocking off Lincoln this past weekend.
Yeah, Coach Manigo, we've competed against each other quite a few times.
I was going to say.
Extremely good coach. He's put together a good staff down there as well with some familiar faces. Those guys got their first win last week. Mm-hmm. It's always good to get that first win as a head coach.
Yes.
You kind of get that monkey off your back, so to speak. I can look back and remember my first one. So definitely hats off, congratulations to him. For getting that. I think any ball club that he coaches, he knows what it takes. Mm-hmm. He's been around the league long enough to know that you have to do certain things to win in this league. And I think he's anchoring his ball club down to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see on Saturday. But I think in terms of being ready and being prepared and knowing the recipe, he knows it.
Mm-hmm. They defeated Lincoln 36-21. In fact, they came in only scoring 13 points the first 2 weeks. They almost tripled that in the win against Lincoln. They did it with a rookie quarterback, a freshman quarterback who was the CIAA Rookie of the Week. Alexander Marsh threw for 165 yards, a couple of touchdowns, did throw an INT, but was sacked 3 times against the Lions defense.
Yeah, he's a freshman, but he's playing big.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you get to see that. Anytime you can kind of get thrusted back there in that position, a lot of things are going to be expected of you. He performed. He had some open guys. He did a lot of good things well enough to be named Rookie of the Week. And kind of willed those guys to their first victory.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing you look for in a quarterback, somebody who has the ability to win for you. He's able to do that for those guys. So, Coach Manigo was a quarterback.
Yes, he was.
So, you might expect something at some other positions, but you definitely know the quarterback position is going to be ready.
How challenging is that for a freshman? You playing, your first year here at Union. What is that like to be thrust into that role as a first-year guy?
Man, the lights get a little big sometimes. Thank goodness I wasn't necessarily under the center or anything like that. Was in the back of a senior. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of guys on that team that kind of helped me kind of get it on through. We had a lot of great senior leadership. So we were able to do something more with a few of our freshmen like myself to be prepared to play because,
Mm-hmm.
we were entrusted with so many guys that were older, and I think their team kind of makeup is like that. They're playing a few younger guys, but they also have some guys that are experienced,
Mm-hmm.
that can get it done. So, having a good mixture, I think, helps you.
And another one of those experienced guys is Jaden Perkins, who had a big game against Lincoln last week. 2 interceptions in the win. He was named Defensive Back of the Week. When you had a chance to see him on tape, what stands out about Jaden?
A ball hawk. He does a good job in that secondary, in terms of just, getting to the ball. He does a lot of good things in the run game as well. So everybody see the picks and things like that and kind of equate things to that. But I think he's an excellent player. And they have a few excellent players on defense. They move around extremely well. The package is a little something different than what we probably seen, the first couple of weeks. So we got to have all guys ready, and we got to be ready to play when we get down to Durham.
We were talking about your stat getting Johnson C. Smith off the field on third downs. For Shaw University, I saw this stat and it kind of blew me away. On third down opportunities, they're just 5 of 37 this year at 13%. I'm going to put you in the mind of Coach Pointer. When you look at that stat, what do you tell your guys in that situation for a team that really, maybe, like you said, doesn't extend drives to a certain degree because, 32 or 37 opportunities, they're almost 3 and out?
Yeah, I mean, it's something you look at, but I think, they're taking the kind of the steps to get better each week. And I think they did enough to get their first victory last week. So they're kind of getting it in motion. So you can kind of, pull the stats the way you want them to look and things like that. Of course, on paper, the percentage doesn't look, that great.
Right.
But then you look and say, you know what? They did a lot to win that game on Saturday. A lot of times, they didn't necessarily have to get the third down. They made big plays early. So, you can kind of tailor it to however you want to. And I think that's something that, Coach Pointer does a good job of, and all our coaches do a good job of that, of making sure that, you don't just look at them, you can kind of read into them. And those numbers tell a story sometimes. I just know, when it gets to conference time, you can throw a bunch of stuff out of the window. With last week being a game against a conference team, this game going down as a game that's gonna, count on our side, for all things like that. We got to keep it moving. We got to make sure that we doing everything to will us to wins.
Right.
And our guys know how important it is. Every single game, counts. A lot of times people might say, we get into the conference, we doing this, we doing that. I think we put a mantra around here that every game counts toward what we want to do. So, those guys play it like that. So when Saturday gets here, with it being a conference game, I think these guys will be ready.
Mentioning about the start of the conference season with 3 straight road games, I had a chance to listen to your press conference earlier this week, and John O'Connor with the RTD mentioned that stat that since 2023, starting this month, you would have played 32 games and only 9 are at home. So you're playing 23 of 32 road games or neutral site games, counting the postseason, because last year you played 3 in the postseason on the road. That's a staggering number, 23 of 32 games on the road, and yet you guys have been successful away from Hovey. What do you attribute that success away from Hovey on a consistent basis like that for this group?
I mean, some people can claim to be road warriors. They can claim it. Our numbers show we road warriors. So it. Until John brought it up yesterday, I didn't know it was that many.
I didn't know it, yeah.
So when you kind of look at it, I think all guys just relish so much an opportunity to play football. And I've had groups here. I've been fortunate enough to have some groups here with a bunch of kids that love football. So, as long as it's a field that's 100 yards and 53 wide, and those guys, get an opportunity to play, they're going to do it, whether they got to get on the bus to do it, get on a plane to do it, or just walk right out of their dorm to do it. Those guys relish in the opportunity. So I've been fortunate enough as a coach to have those type of groups that it doesn't take a lot of motivation. You got to get ready for a football game, no matter where we do it at, So that's probably why I didn't notice as much,
Because it's just business as usual for you guys.
That's what I feel like, So in terms of doing it like that, that might go over your head, But football coaches know how important that is, and coming back this weekend and being able to play at home and kind of have things here and being able to get home at a reasonable hour and being able to kind of, jump right in the car and kind of do that. People don't, take that. Being able to, have that group that we just had in here, the band, play right behind your back and feel all that goodness from your home crowd, it felt great, so when you hear it, you come to the games and you see it, everything that's kind of involved in it, it makes you feel like, well, we got a heck of a home experience here.
That's right.
And I love to play here a little bit more. You feel it like that. You feel good about it. So, again, like I said, I didn't notice the numbers, but now looking at them, it's like, woo.
Well, it's 3 more on the road starting this Saturday against Shaw. Then the trip to Winston at Bowman Gray, and then to Roebuck, where Coach Parker started his head coaching career down at Elizabeth City. Those are the next 3 games on the schedule before homecoming October 18th against, Lincoln, October 18th. So we want to thank the band members again and Dr. Howard for joining us. Coach Parker, the best of luck to you on Saturday in Durham against Shaw. We'll talk to you next week about that, and also the next game on the docket against Winston-Salem State. And thank you for joining us. We will talk to you next week on another edition of the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show. I'm Sean Robertson. Good night, everyone.
Unlock the secrets of leadership with Play for 11. Leadership by Dr. Alvin Parker, packed with strategies, wisdom, and practical tools. This book is designed to help you lead with confidence, clarity, and purpose. Whether you're a student of leadership or already in the game, Play for 11. Leadership will guide you to the next level. Get your copy today. Available now on Amazon.